Welcome to the 12 o'clock news. As always, I'm Sammy Face, and with me are Harsha and Sideshow. Welcome back, guys.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this week, we're going to start off by talking about the new French team in Overwatch called IceblockGG. And they are using some of what Sideshow considers to be the best free agents available.
I'm pretty sure the only free agent that isn't included there that I might put in that list is Spree, who's currently, I mean, he's Belgian. He's not actually French, but he's like a francophone.
It's like the same thing.
It pretty much is. I don't think there's that much of like even a cultural difference. Like, you know, when you talk about some people that share languages, there can be a bit of a culture difference, but I don't think there really is that much. Might just be my ignorance showing. But yeah, Spree's not included in this. I heard that actually he was perhaps thinking of forming some kind of French team, so I don't know whether he's making like a counter one or, I mean, this one's pretty stacked though. So enough of Spree.
Let's talk about the actual lineup. So it's Super Pluke is on tank. Heiko, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Heiko.
Heiko is Flex Tank, Crew on DPS, Flippy on DPS, Hidan on Flex support, and Lilbo on support. And then they have a manager, Moon L.
Yeah, Moon L used to be, who was he playing for? He was a tank for Melty back in the day, I think, and then he played for a couple of other teams as well. He was like, he's a notable player, but I don't think he ever really stood out. I think he used to have a decent Winston or something. I might be misremembering. But either way, Super Pluke is obviously like your main tank that looked super good in the French scene, other than Colsty, who is obviously currently playing for like a top team in Movistar Riders. And then Crew, Hidan, these are both, I mean, Hidan and Super Pluke played together for a while, and that LG team always had better individual talent than it ever managed to manifest on an actual game. So perhaps when they're all in like a French team, they can unlock something they didn't there.
One of my problems with the non-rogue French people in the scene is that every time they've always been like phenomenally skilled, but every time they've been on a team, they just always manage to underperform for whatever reason, except for back in the old days with Melty, right? So like, I'm definitely looking forward to see if like now that they all have a unified culture, if they will be able to actually bring out the talent that they do have and, you know, perform well.
Do you know what I think one of those things was? It was like a lack of leadership from the French guys that weren't in Rogue. I think something that Rogue did really well back when they first made some changes to the roster and dropped IDDQD, like after the first Takeover 1, back when we were still playing with no hero limits. They brought Nox into the team, and they already had a bit of a structure, and I think he kind of adds to it. He has a very long history with calling and being a very cerebral player. And then the other French guys that used to play in Misfits had a really thoughtful and good calling there from like some really clever players in, well, basically all of them, plus some really vocal guys like Zebasai to play with. So I feel like everybody else was kind of lacking that leadership. I'm not really sure who the leader role is on this team. Maybe Crew?
To me, the old Misfits team, which had both Crew and Soon, I think that the way they played was always more of like a solo queue style, other than maybe like the time where they were playing Beyblade, I guess, at Overwatch Open. But I think that they worked really well, even though I guess you could say Zebasai definitely was like their kind of leadership role figure. But I don't know. It's hard for me to say that I think that they worked well as like a team more than 6 units, right? Well, especially when we saw what they did at DreamHack, you know.
Do you know what? The more I've been thinking of DreamHack, this might send us off on a ridiculous tangent as well, by the way. So feel free to rein me in whenever. But the more I've been thinking about DreamHack, and I actually revisited it a while back, is yesterday. I don't know why I said a while back. Every day drags for me, apparently. I think, I mean, they were going for like a triple DPS thing, and it was a great utilization of the roster that they had. And I think they said in interviews, like to throw Nip off, that they didn't know what they were doing. But I'm pretty sure that they knew what they were doing, and they'd been trashed by Nip over the course of like 5 different tournaments online, and they wanted something different to counter like the tank meta currently going on. And if you look back at the Overwatch Open, when they still had to bring in like 2 stand-in players and stuff, Zebasai was always incredibly good at being able to piece together what they had and make it like a really good cohesive unit. So I think people kind of might, I mean, this is like an alternate theory, another way of looking at it perhaps, tinfoil hats on. But I think they perhaps had more of a unit than people give them credit for, despite having some phenomenally talented players.
The funny thing about that, kind of like the setup that they were running is it's really similar to actually what Rogue does now, where they had like one DPS in the back that was the Widowmaker for them, but now it's like the Soldier 76, and then they had Genji and Tracer and Winston jumping into the enemy team. So
it was basically the same. I mean, it
Yeah.
was literally like the precursor to the triple DPS kind of thing, just with a Widow, and it worked really well. To bring it back to this French team, I don't know too much about Lilbo, the guy that they've got on Lucio, and Hidan. I think from talking to the guys on Misfits when he played for them, and like thinking about him when he was part of the Tier 2 scene and stuff like that, his potential was unlocked whenever they were at LAN events and in person. He's a guy that very much steps up when it's like the big time to perform, and only really seems to hit his stride and properly communicate with the rest of his team and really zone in on the play and start to call much more when the stakes are high and he's at like one of these LAN tournaments. And LG Loyal never got an opportunity to play at one of those when they had him on the roster, and Superpluke as well. So I don't know where the leadership. Also, Flippy is another guy that's been playing in Europe and definitely looked like he had the potential at times to be like a really good DPS player, but never really had the team around him. The team, it's just full of potential, but no way to tell where it's going.
Exactly. It's like all the really talented French players, but nobody really. We see the potential, but we don't see like how they'll mesh together, who's gonna like be the leadership figure in this team, and I guess there's just still things to work out, you know.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about another roster. Boombox moves from ex-Cyclone to eUnited.
Yeah, this one was an interesting one. I mean, ex-Cyclone have been, for my money, like based on the data and what you've been seeing of them in tournaments and stuff, not based on like scrim results, stuff like that, they've looked like the best team in Europe, underneath Movistar Riders, sorry. So like the second best team in Europe. And I think there's still a lot of parity in the European scene, and certainly Boombox in the announcement when he said that eUnited are arguably the best team in the region as well. I think they've really been setting the pace of like the shifts in the play style and stuff, and started establishing this triple DPS comp. But it's kind of surprising to me because ex-Cyclone have managed to keep hold of all of their players without getting poached for so long. And this is right before their big LAN, and they're looking really good. It's a bit of a weird timing for it, at least. Even if I completely understand Boombox because he's been playing without a salary for ages, and now eUnited want him. I mean, that's a big team.
The problem here is that also Overwatch Contenders just came up, which I assume we're going to talk about later. But like, ex-Cyclone has looked like a top team in Europe, and it doesn't really seem like an upgrade to go to eUnited outside of the salary, right? It just seems kind of like a side grade, not a downgrade in any sense, because eUnited is definitely a top tier team. But when we think about Boombox and Rubicon, I think they're very similar players, like both very talented, and like it just seems like a weird move, right? There definitely has to be something going on with Rubicon for it to actually take place, because the eUnited was performing very well, and like I don't really see a real reason to swap in a player that pretty much does the exact same thing.
Yeah, apparently the eUnited were having difficulties when they went on their boot camp in Korea. I don't know the details of it, and they kicked Rubicon after they came back. They've been back now for about 2 weeks or something, I think. And yeah, I agree with you in that it's not really an upgrade for either party. I mean, it's debatably an upgrade for eUnited, I think, because Boombox,
I guess we'll have synergy now, or more synergy if there's something going on there. Is Rubicon actually going to ex-Cyclone?
Not. Okay, so not as far as I'm aware at the moment, but it was definitely something that they looked into, and I don't really want to say too much because there's an announcement coming up. Like, the team has told me basically everything that's going on behind the scenes, but I'm waiting until they announce, just out of deference to them. But you'll see fairly shortly, but they have like a situation that might be temporary or might not be for takeover, and then they might go and revisit other options. They're not really sure, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, but definitely I think Rubicon is a really talented player. I don't think he's been kicked for any in-game or like individual skill problems, because
they look
him
good.
And Boombox seem to be much of a muchness. I think Boombox is probably slightly better than him. He does look like a standout player, as particularly on the Zen, but in general, they're both just two really top tier supports.
All right. Also in roster changes, Kaiser went to Cloud9.
I didn't see that one coming.
I mean, I think that's definitely an upgrade, right? Because now you have a dedicated tank, whereas Gods was playing tank for maybe a month and a half, 2 months, or something like that. And so I actually thought Gods' Winston usage was really good. He knew his cooldowns really well. He knew when to use his bubble, when to use his jump, and everything. And it's something I've noticed that not a lot of pros outside of, I would say, Nox and then like the Koreans in general really seem to pay attention to. I'm not including the Europeans here because you just don't see him as much, and I just haven't seen much out of him other than Pit, even though there have been some tournaments. But I do think that giving them a real Reinhardt player, because Gods wasn't that, will definitely be good in the long term. And then putting Gods back on Roadhog, which he was really strong on, will probably be a good change.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it leaves Runaway in a pickle as well,
Yeah.
but we kind of talked about that last episode, I think, because he was already confirmed to have been leaving at that time. But
yeah,
in terms of what he adds to Cloud9, if they can integrate the Korean guys that they have and make a system that meshes nicely, I think something that Cloud9 have been missing within their games is a sense
maybe?
of... I don't even think it's cohesion, actually. I think it's a sense of having people in a role where they're most impactful. So like building up your star people. And for them, Surefour is their star talent, and having him on Diva is a literal waste. Like it's just, it doesn't make any sense. So having the guy play, even actually the idea of putting Gods on a flex DPS and having him pick up the Genji is a little strange. Because Surefour, whenever he's on it, even though it doesn't seem to be a hero that he particularly feels that comfortable on, he tends to pound on it. So structuring the team around Surefour and Kaiser gives them an identity that they can then build the rest of the players around. But it's going to be interesting to see how they work Gods into this, because Gods isn't that super flexible guy who they can just like slot in wherever they need him.
Overwatch Contenders was announced, and that is probably the biggest news, the most exciting news that we've had in a long time, because we've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for some kind of announcement on what they're going to do next. So that will be $50,000 per region. Although Harsha was told by Stu, and we ran the math, and it actually, if you go into the rules for the tournament, it's actually $60,000.
They did the math wrong somewhere. Yeah. Either they're not giving out the right amount of money, or they're just giving $60,000 to each region.
The extra 10K just goes into the pockets of the people they have to bribe just to get like the right teams there or whatever. They just send 10K over to. Actually, no. Is that not the reason? Is that not what it is? The fact that they've just given somebody a buy into a later stage means they don't have to pay out the prize pool for a particular thing? Like
no, it's divided among. You mean like Cloud9 will still be competing in the first season,
but Rogue and Envious won't. So that's 2 slots that otherwise would
they're paying out
surely be receiving prize money.
They're paying out 1 through 8.
Yeah, but they're paying out 1
regardless.
through 8, but it's only 1 through 6 on the North American side. So does that not add up to 50K?
I think there's still going to be 8 teams in North America.
Yeah, there are, but 2 of them in season 1 are going to be Rogue and Envious. In season 0, there's still going to be 60.
whoever competes in this season is still going to get paid. So like, even if they're not competing, like that's fine. But whatever 8 top teams are actually playing will still get paid out.
And it still doesn't change that there's 60,000 being handed out to Europe too, which doesn't have the missing teams.
So it's 20 grand that you're out. I think this is actually the first tournament that Blizzard's actually paying prize money for. Because I think the only other one they did was the World Cup. I mean, unless you want to count MLG as Blizzard, which I don't, because they say that that's what it was.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So this is the first time that they're actually paying out prize money in the math wrong.
I'm just happy to see like finally competition, and this is supposed to culminate in a LAN, which would be nice.
Yes.
Do you know?
Give LAN.
Do you know
please.
which stages are LAN? Like which bits?
It's top 8, I believe.
Tournament? So okay, so just to go through the structure of it, because this whole thing is kind of confusing, and Overbuff Captain Planet made a flowchart that I'm currently looking at.
Yeah, it was a cute flowchart, I thought.
So if we ignore the North American side, because Rogue and Envious kind of fuck with that because they're over in Apex, and so they directly get invited to Season 1. And kind of Blizzard fuck with the entire thing because they call it Season 0 and then Season 1.
What the hell is that?
Well, I mean, the season 1 is supposed to be the main thing, right? Which I assume is going to like carry on. So season 2 is going to be a replica of season 1, but season 0 is like before, like the qualifier kind of tournament, I think.
Okay.
So they want to call it something
kickstart it.
different. Yeah, that's like my interpretation of it, I think, as to why they branded it that.
And
So
these are
what this
pre-established teams that have like been in the scene already.
what
Well,
this seems like.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh,
some
what
of
this
them
seems
are,
like.
but there's also an entry for
Yeah.
teams just to sign up at all, right?
Right.
That's like part of the open qualifier part of this whole thing, is that there are teams that are not really invited but get priority seeding, like they're recognized and they get seeded 1 to 4 in both regions, but anybody can sign up.
What this seems like to me is it's going to be like a permanent fixture as a kind of secondary league to Overwatch League, and I imagine that's what this is going to be used for. And as we know, endemic brands seem to be able to be in this. So, like, I guess this is an example of Blizzard not completely ignoring the endemic brands, but instead they might have, like, you know, the big name, big investment brands in the Overwatch League, whereas Contenders will have all the endemic orgs. It does seem like, is there going to be some sort of relegation in this tournament, or is it just qualifiers for season 0 and then onwards it'll be the same?
I don't think there's any information been released yet on how season 2, if assuming there will be a season 2 and onwards, would relate to season 1. I assume they won't be doing the same thing though, because that would require 2 seasons, as in they would have to run season 3 be some kind of qualifying system, same as season 0, and then so there must be some kind of promotion or relegation, or in some way carrying through from season 1 to season 2, but they haven't laid it out yet. And I like the fact that it's like an underling to the Overwatch League, or it appears to be at the moment. Yeah. And they absolutely needed that. They needed some way for endemic organizations and teams and people to get involved, but not actually. So the 2 leagues don't interact. One is just going to be sat kind of above the other. I assume they'll be giving more resources to OWL and trying to push it and really have that as their flagship. The funny thing to me, though, is that there is a high possibility that Overwatch Contenders is going to be better quality than Overwatch League.
No. So I think what's going to have to happen is that they're going to have to buy out all these players, because right now all of the best players will be playing in Contenders, unless they just bring all the Koreans into Overwatch League, which, I mean, I don't think is likely.
Well, I think the Koreans will have their own system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. But as we know right
Europe
now,
and North America.
Yeah. I don't know if they aren't able to buy out all these teams or something. They have.
The thing is,
there's no
even
way
if they do, for example, imagine if the Overwatch League started, say, 6 months ago, right? And they pick up the current best teams 6 months ago, and all of the kind of teams that are currently the best, the developing teams, your Movistar Riders, your ex-Cyclones, your Hammers, your was Selfless around 6 months ago? No, not really. They weren't a relevant team 6 months ago.
They were bad.
Yeah, they were bad at that point. Who else? I mean, there's a ton of teams who are currently at the top that'd make for a fantastic league, potentially better than the league that would have been made having locked in those rosters from 6 months ago. So depending on how many patches there are, how quick teams are to develop and stuff like that, I think even if Overwatch League just literally buys up say there's 10 teams in it, buys up the top 10 rosters and has an amazing tournament, by the end of it, or by say halfway through, you might see that teams in Contenders end up actually being better than half or possibly all of the teams in Overwatch League. You might have the best in the world in Contenders.
It's like some sort of developmental league, right? Where they're going to try and take the best players out of Contender and put them into Overwatch League slots.
That would be the idea. Here's a question that I have, actually. Tell me if I'm right about this, but it seems like with the way that Overwatch moves and the roster changes that are being made in the last year, we've seen constant roster changes, right? Like, no team has really stayed the same for a significant period of time without, like, switching.
A number of them have, but it's been the minority,
Yeah, yes. So that being said, how difficult do you think it's going to be for them to run a high-level league that maintains the ability to do that? Because as the game changes and as the meta changes, you're going to be changing rosters as well. Do you think that'll continue in the upper echelon of the league, or do you think that that's going to be restricted?
Something that's been hinted at is that they're probably going to have more than 6 people on each roster. I imagine it's going to be run like that.
Yeah, this isn't hinted for the Contenders either. If you look in the rules, it's 8-man rosters for Contenders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I assume is then going to be the same in OWL. But it might not be, but I assume that would be the same.
I imagine it'll be 8+. I don't think they're going to have less than that. So
since they're doing that, they might then restrict the amount of trades that you can do.
Sure, but at the same time, like they will want to keep the friend like. You don't want a team to look completely different than it was, I guess, 2 months ago, right? But at the same time, I think that can also be traced to, poor infrastructure within organizations right now because nobody actually is putting all their resources into Overwatch. It's just kind of like we don't know that many of the coaches, we don't know that many of the analysts, even if they are there, we don't know how effective they are. But when you put in these people with sports money and like they can bring in people with actual degrees in these areas, and so I think that you'll be able to manage teams much better and keep them consistent, I would say.
Here's the other thing, though. I don't think it's actually just related to the infrastructure at all. I think there's something inherent in the way that Overwatch has been run over the last year that has made roster changes not only prevalent but actually necessary to keep a team competitive, and that's just that the patch is very much defining how well, apart from the most recent ones, the patch has so far over the last year defined which teams are good, which skills you need to be able to like put a team in, to be able to like run a certain composition, and the so-called meta composition has almost always, with the exception of maybe 2 major patches, been the style that almost all teams run and is the most powerful. Like if you just literally look at who the top teams were. So if they continue pushing out patches which vastly change the meta, then you're going to see this anyway. You're going to see like halfway through the league, if they push out a patch like 2 months in, 2 months into like a 4 to 6 month season, you're going to see a big shift in how that plays out for the rest of the season. And teams are, if they are allowed, going to react to that with roster changes as well, because there's no, I mean, you put all the versatility in the roster you want. If suddenly a patch comes in that makes Reapers incredibly powerful, maybe Reaper's a bad example here actually, because the hero itself, almost anybody can play Reaper. But say it's like a very Pharah-centric meta at the beginning, and then it becomes an incredibly Mei-centric meta towards the end. You have a finite amount of prep that you can do, and you don't know how that end meta is going to look. It's not like you're preparing for something you know in advance. You're just trying to cover all of your bases, spread them as evenly as possible.
And hopefully Blizzard knows that, and they'll space out those patches for like times in between where they have like less impact.
Or just make them more incremental, which is what they're currently doing. So the trend so far, the trend so far is a good one. It's like towards more incremental changes. The problem there is, I mean, what they could also do is just make bigger ones after the season as well. I'd be
just do it
really in favor of that. Very incremental things throughout a season, and then a big change, and then you have like the fresh aspect that they seem to value, as well as the kind of slow incremental improvements that wouldn't disrupt the season.
Something else I want to point out was just looking at the rule book for Contenders, and it looks like every week is listed as online, so it doesn't look like they're allowing for any of it to be offline tournament.
I thought there was offline portions towards the end.
According to this, the finals are going to be held online.
Huh.
So
maybe that's just season 0.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Season 1, I think there was lands in season 1.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
I really want to see some live video games.
Well, this might be how they kind of artificially create the structure between, and like the hierarchy between Overwatch League and Contenders.
Yeah, one of them is kind of like the elite level, and then the next one's like online.
I still really
that's
disagree with like allowing things to people or teams to be ranked by online results. I don't think that's the best way to do
I don't think
things.
that's fair either.
That's currently how Apex and Challenges works, though, right? Apex, every single game's on LAN. You have it very like scheduled out, and things are at peak times, at least for the Korean TV channel. And then the league below that all of the promotions and relegations work through. Although the actual promotion and relegation system itself is held at a LAN, that won't even be necessary for Overwatch League and Contenders if got this hierarchy.
If there's franchising.
Yeah, and there's no system between them. But I agree with you in that I think at the very least the finals or something like that should be held at LAN, because otherwise you've got this fantastic you've got this fantastic Blizzard tournament, and
just have another Carbon series.
Yeah, you've just got more just online competition that people are still going to watch because it's Blizzard and it's big and all the best teams want to be in it, but at the same time it's not actually going to be as big as just some of the third-party events that are held. I mean, if someone else is running a third-party LAN event, then you might even miss a couple of games of this or whatever to go and attend.
It's not even a viewership issue. It's an issue of like the viability of those results.
I imagine they're also not going to let other people run third-party
that's true.
as well as going on.
Yeah, that's very true. The way that I see it in my mind working is that they run this at the same time as the Overwatch
As
League.
L, yeah.
Yeah, and then they have the rest of the off season just for third-party tournaments. And that, I mean, that makes sense from like their viewership model, right? They want to push people towards L, and this is just for people who kind of want to look at the upcoming teams.
Seems like it's for the hardcore people, honestly.
Yeah, but they could still do that and have LAN finals, right? That wouldn't make everybody suddenly go like, "Oh, fuck Owl! I just want to watch this."
So
now.
they do in
You know,
CS. They have minor tournaments and things like that for those teams to compete in, and people actually show up to those and participate in those. And I think you bond more with those teams that you see more as the underdog, and you want to see them rise up and come out of it. But you can't do that as much with online tournaments, and also, like I said, like I don't think that it's fair to base results of an online tournament for something as important as that. I don't think that that's fair. So you were saying earlier about that player that just kills it on LAN specifically. That I think there's plenty of people that are the same way, that they just switch on when they're on LAN, and it's a completely different environment and it's completely different competitively. And I think that those results are generally the best results to go by. And I don't think that I don't think that having an entire league base. I really hope that they spend more time doing the offline stuff.
The other thing to point out as well is, they might do this for season 2 onwards, or they might never plan to do it. I mean, we don't know right now. This is just their initial launch of it. And I agree with you that I would definitely, I mean, I don't even mind so much if the regular season of it is online in the same way that you have like the EPL or whatever in CSGO that has your
ECS
online portion.
And,
ECS as well.
I wouldn't even mind that kind of structure. I think that would be a massive improvement. But I think
it's fun
for competitive integrity and just for a better viewing experience and like just to add something extra into your game, it would be great if at some point they introduce LAN finals to this as well. Because as I say, it could genuinely be the best teams in the world competing in contenders, depending on how long the Overwatch League is and how much they allow, like how big the patches are and stuff like that.
Yeah, it would be a shame for someone to pick up a team based off of their online results and then find out that they suck on LAN.
That's also true. Yeah, I think that's got to be something that Blizzard keep in mind, right? Because if you're in the Overwatch League and you've got the bottom spot with a team that has been underperforming all season, I don't think, I know this is kind of going against the grain of most people, but I really don't think that people are just going to like cherry pick out of contenders. If you have a team that's come first in contenders and you know that the skill levels are roughly similar between the two things because you've been very exclusive in how you've picked out, just pick up that team wholesale. They're going to do sick. They might even have a chance of winning the whole thing. You pick them up, maybe make minor changes to the roster, add some infrastructure, some better coaching, team house, whatever, fly them out to a LAN. You've got a sick team. Now, if you're basing that entirely off online results, like you say, where's your basis to actually think, well, they're going to be able to perform at a LAN? Those are two different areas of, like, two different battle arenas.
And in Overwatch also, there's a lot of people playing who are quite new to competitive gaming. And so for a lot of people, it's like their first LAN. It's like, I mean, like, LAN nerves are a real thing. And it's...
exactly.
Especially being on a stage, having a crowd. I mean... It's one thing to go to a community LAN, and it's one thing to sit on a stage in front of 5,000 people. You know,
Zachary shit the bed when he played at Atlantic Showdown, and he was playing for Misfits. They had a really poor performance because of him. And
he's been out of the tournament scene for a long time.
Yeah, but there's definitely been more people like that as well. Yeah. I mean, that one just stands out.
So I think that is hopefully something that they'll address. I don't know whether it's why they're not doing it in this. I don't know whether it's a money issue or whether they just can't be bothered.
I think it's just a season 0 thing. I imagine they will introduce LANs into season 1 and onwards.
Considering the community outcry recently, you would think that they would try to turn it into a LAN. I know that they're still planning World Cup and stuff like that, but for something like this, it wouldn't be that hard to just do a 1 weekend finals. Like, it's pretty straightforward. It's 2 months or a month from now.
Carbon Series is running this in North America, right? This is going to be... Right. I don't even know where that information came from, but
No, it's because I remember I linked this in Discord, and it said, you know how it gives you the little preview of the article? It had the domain name was Carbon Series or something like that.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so...
But, yeah, the left guy as well, I think, is going to be involved. Big hype for the return of Gilfrost. But... I I don't know whether they're going to be covering the entire thing over in North America, or whether the European portion is going to be covered by Europeans produced somewhere else. I heard that there might be something happening like with Face It and ESL or something like that.
And we know MLG is involved as well somehow.
Yeah, so it's kind of strange. I don't really know who is doing the production
this is
aspect
starting in
of
like a week, so.
Yeah, but so obviously, I mean, these things will be ironed out behind the scenes. It's just that we don't really know what's going on with them.
I like the way that ECS does it, where they have like the EU games and then the NA games, and they just do it all in one big day, and then they just have like a couple days a week that they do that, and then everything culminates in a grand final LAN.
I think they want to kind of avoid that kind of structure because they want to really space things out so that they like space out the content and people watch it a lot once they actually get to the season. That is, in terms of the qualifiers, they do have it like all on.
I don't know that I want to watch games every single night of the week, to be honest. Like I prefer the ones where it was like, what was it, like Monday, Thursday, and that sort of thing. Like that was nice. I don't. Yeah. And I like watching only a couple games at a time. I'm not going to watch for 4 hours. It's not going to happen.
I don't mind just tuning in whenever. You know, like. You can just turn it on if there's nothing else on. You just know Overwatch will be there to save you.
But the interesting thing as well is whether they tie it into any existing tournaments. The point that I was making about Face It and ESL and stuff is that they have existing tournaments that could potentially tie it into some kind of LAN. Like this one almost matches up with Gamescom, right? In terms of the timeline of things. So maybe they don't want to run it this time, but maybe next year it ties into Gamescom and the finals end up being there or something. So I think these are the kind of things that maybe they can branch out and explore, or maybe they cut off for reasons that we don't know.
Work with some third parties who've done it before and can put on a good show.
Possibly.
They trust.
Yeah. In terms of just optimism and like where you think the Overwatch League will go and how you think it'll be run based on what you've seen from contenders, do you think this has swayed public opinion now that we've actually got something concrete on the table?
It has a lot, I think. Even maybe more than it should have, I would say, because everybody's really hyped about this. I still feel like a lot of the details might not be fully ironed out, but maybe I just haven't read the rule book close enough.
I read close enough to. It's a pretty quick read.
I mean, I read close enough to see the money mistakes. So.
Although
that was tipped off
agree.
To me, so.
I think that people are just taking it as like, oh, Blizzard has saved us, everything is golden, and it feels very much like constant misdirection. Look at the shiny thing over here. Don't pay attention to the other thing we told you about.
Oh, man.
Like that. Honestly, we did that with
the shiny thing they've given you is a 50k 50k event going into a 100k event.
It's a really nice.
It doesn't get much more shiny than that, does it?
It would if it were on land.
They're dangling money.
I think it's great. I think it's great. They're finally putting money into the community. That's fantastic. Yeah. Like that's a big step forward for them because, like I said, they have not injected any money into the esports scene, and the game's been out a year. So seeing them finally put some money down is great. Seeing them support the teams that already exist and acknowledging that they exist is fantastic. Yeah. But that's what I expected to happen. So am I super psyched and excited? Not as much, especially if it's not going to be on LAN. If it is on LAN, I'll be super extra excited to watch it and more happy that it's happening. But it's not anything that I didn't think was already going to take place because we already knew that this league was pretty much going to exist.
But just think about the future now, right? Because when Overwatch League happens, presumably the Tier 1 players will be moving into that league. And now this creates a space where we will be able to support Tier 2 players, Tier 3 players, whereas we wouldn't have been able to do that before. I think that's the nice thing about this.
It is nice, but they already said they were going to do it. So it's kind of like, it's not like a galloping shock to anybody that this is taking place.
They didn't say they were going to do this. I mean, there were certainly rumors circulating around those behind the scenes, right?
Feed into... That's what they said in the announcement.
Yeah, but that could have been so vague. I mean,
here's the thing, though. If they're going to do that, they've made it very clear that they're going to take complete control over everything. So, like, you put 2 and 2 together of they want to have something that feeds into the main league, and they want to have totalitarian control of the entire competitive scene. So it would make sense that they would be the ones running that league.
Sure, but I think what you've actually just expressed there is that you had quite an optimistic view of how it was going to go, and now it's fulfilled, and that was what you were expecting.
Yeah.
I think for most people, they were worried there might not even be a space for these Tier 2 organizations to get in. Well, I don't know whether that was too silly. You look at some of the developers and like some of the ways that like we hadn't heard anything and stuff like that. I think those fears were kind of reasonable, Like when we were in the TF2 scene, right, we were fucking lucky if Valve even acknowledged us or whatever. And they have completely different relationships with their other games. But in the CS:GO scene, often the fact that they're not communicating with you and then they just come out and do something retarded, and you're like, okay, where did that come from? What are you doing? Are you not listening to anything?
Let's go.
Yeah. And then, so I think although people are just like, this is how things should go, so I'm not getting too overwhelmed and I'm not disappointed. The fact that things at the moment look like they're on track is, in my opinion, like a sign,
a good
like
thing.
a really good sign.
It's all right. All right. So yes, I'm not surprised by it. I am surprised that they announced it with like a week to go. That's concerning to me. The other thing that is concerning to me is that they still haven't given us any information about Overwatch League. Again, shiny things. I feel like I want more info about the Overwatch League. I want to see how they're practically going to use the Combine, and I feel like it's, you know, it's our responsibility to remind them that the Combine needs to
Combine.
happen, right?
Miro's there. I feel like I say this every episode. Miro's in the Combine, guys.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want the thing that we've been promised for.
I don't want a Combine.
All this time.
I honestly
don't.
I don't really care about a Combine.
I feel like a Combine would be, in my vision of what a Combine would be, it would just be a big show where you get people, like all the best players to come and all the fans come and everybody just plays pickup games and you watch them play pickup games and you see what players play well with other players, and then people get to actually see how big of an impact that teamwork makes. Because I think that that's one of the biggest that's one of the biggest problems that we were discussing before, is that teamwork has such a large impact on the game. So if I were to watch a Combine for Overwatch, my vision dream is like a festival, right, where we can watch them play pickup games, and you can just see how everyone plays together.
You want the Combine to be rank S.
That is such a weird dream, Sammy. Honestly.
Why? I feel like
I've had dreams where
fun.
I woke up sweating and I was like ostriches chasing me when I was dressed in bin bags, and that was a weirder dream than the ones that I've had.
I feel like that would be fun. Like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with having showcase people's ability to work as a team and how effective they are in different scenarios with playing with different people of different skill levels?
I feel like what they planned was to have some sort of like, I think they wanted some sort of like sports like Combine where they just test out like reaction speeds and stuff like that.
Play OS for 3 hours and see how well they do at the end of it.
I think genuinely, I don't use the word very often, but I think I would cringe myself into oblivion if we had like a Combine where it was like measuring people's reflexes and they were tapping dots on the screen.
And it's pointless too. It's pointless too because this isn't a mechanic-based game. This isn't an aim-based game. Like those things don't matter. So why would you test them? That would be so stupid. I could see people doing that for games like CS where like your reaction time is important and your aim.
Again, I don't think it would even work there.
Yeah, even there it would be stupid, but it would at least be more reasonable. Like you could at least make the mental leap as to why they would think that people would fall for it. But in Overwatch, it's like a MOBA. Like, why would you care? Why would you care how well someone aims if they're just playing Lucio the whole time? Like, who the fuck cares?
Which makes the thing of the Combine not only difficult to actually come up with a way in which it would be in any sense useful, right? Because the whole purpose of a Combine is so that people who are picking up teams have like a thing to do. So in that sense, I agree, like your pickup game idea kind of works, but the logistics of it would just be ridiculous. Like you've got all the good players, 75,000 pros in a room, and I'm going to scour all of these pickup games to see who impresses me.
Auto draft, everybody's just auto draft everything, right? You stream a couple of the games, blah, blah, blah. You already go into a Combine knowing what players you want to look at, right? You don't go in without doing your homework. You come in with a list, 10 guys. You're like, I want to see these 10 guys I'm not sure about, right? I want to see them play in person, on the LAN situation, see how well they do, right? So in a pickup game, you're getting to see, well, this guy has personality issues because every time he's on a different team, he fights with them. Every time he's on a team, they lose. Every time he's on a team, they win. Every time he's on a team, he's taking charge. You can test leadership skills with that. You can test teamwork skills with that. You can test cohesiveness. There's a lot of different, like creativity even. There's a lot of different things that you can test just by throwing people in with a different group of partners each game.
I think
the logistics are so mad.
You do it with a computer. I play tank. I play DPS. Beep.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, right. First, you have to gather all these motherfuckers together, right? Then then you have to get them all sat down. You have to get the people in who actually want to make teams. First, you have to make sure they're all free agents
just
as well.
breathing
and
on your
contracts.
You see all the talent scouts just breathing down the players' backs.
You have to have set time for each talent scout from each member of the Overwatch League or whatever it is to sit them down and like run them through games and everything. Then you have to find some way in which the viewers can actually like interact or watch it, because otherwise, what's the point? I mean, you could have run that behind the scenes and not announced it in the first place. These things just, first of all, there's no need for it. Second, but I genuinely think Blizzard are going to do it. Well, exactly. All right, I mean, that's not a need, though. That's just them fulfilling a promise.
Give me your first problem again, because I swear to God, I can make this work.
Right, first of all, they have to be all free agents.
That's all be free agents. Well, we saw that with CGS, and I think that was my tinfoil.
That's not what they're going to do, man.
That was my tinfoil hat.
They're not going to buy out.
They're going to have to buy out the contracts. Okay.
But they're not.
Okay. Well, okay, so we know, one, the Combine is happening. It has been promised. We know they will do it eventually.
Yeah, I believe they will do it.
They will do it. So
but we don't know
that.
We don't know it, but I mean, I think they'd be like stepping so far back down the ladder to back down from that promise when they literally invited a dude there at BlizzCon. It was like a central theme of their promise. I agree. I would almost like them to scrap it. It's like the one idea that I would like them to scrap, but I don't think they will.
What if
they're gonna have to.
What if they do it as a showcase? You don't have to be a free agent. You don't have to be draftable, but you do it as a showcase of your talent and skill, right?
Sure.
So you opt in. Opt in, because then when you get dropped in 2 months because the meta changes, another team actually knows how good you are.
Maybe, but I don't think, right, but if you're putting yourself in that perspective of a player who, you know, let's say Hafikul, right? He's got this talent, he showed it on NWA, he came into Fnatic, he showed it on Diva, then they were playing at Apex, and he got just slammed along with the rest of his team, had no impact. Came back, played in the Overwatch multi-melee, got slammed. Dragon Blades looked like he was waving a piece of wet lettuce at people instead of a sword. Like, it just was not good, right? But he was playing on 140 ping or whatever. So he's the kind of guy where it would definitely benefit him to show like his talent. But that also doesn't hit the concept of, would Hafikul want to go there, pug with a bunch of randomers in like a ranked experience, just on the off chance that when the scouts stood behind him, he has a Dragon Blade that someone's not giving him a bubble for, and he ends up just like spilling his beans and spaghetti falls.
That's why he's going to join 7.
Right, but the risk is also there for the players as well, right? Because if you underperform in that situation, you're...
Yeah, but that's how combines work.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, is that it's...
But that's why
all these stresses. You're under all these stresses. You're under all this, like, it's on land. Tons of people are watching. You just broadcast one game at a time, talk about what's happening, blah, blah, blah. Have people keep tabs on the games that are going on. You can only have, like, 6 games going on at the same time. That's still plenty of people to be looking at. And you don't have to have scouts physically breathing down people's necks. You have video cameras for that. Set up a ton of video cameras, right? And the reason that it's better than playing ranked online is that people are 10 times nicer in person than they are online. You'd agree that playing ranked on all right, Happy's the exception, but he's always nice to me.
I love it.
Ranked online is cancerous. People treat each other like trash. It's awful, right? It's very unpleasant. Every stream I've ever watched has confirmed to me that playing ranked is an unpleasant experience. However, people on LAN are always nicer than they are online. So
right, so then you get the other bias, right? Then you get a load of people sat in the thing, knowing that they're being watched, going, yeah, dudes, let's go. And then they get back into the team. They get fucking picked up, and then they're going, these fucking idiots, I'm gonna kick this guy. He's toxic.
Here's the thing, though, if you're under that much pressure in a situation like this, where you're looking to get picked up, or you're looking to make yourself look good, and you're under all that pressure, and it's live, right? If you're gonna break, that's when you're gonna break. If you're gonna be a douche, that's when you're gonna be a douche, because you've got so much pressure on you to perform well that when people screw you over that are on your own team, you're gonna lose it at them if that's your predisposition.
All right, here's another angle of this, though. If you saying that online play with your team in the exact same environment is not indicative of your offline performance at a LAN where you actually want to test these people, in what sense is playing in a pug team indicative of any kind of performance when you're actually going to be in a team? The teamwork aspect is so large for Overwatch that does it even tell you anything like watching somebody either in like an improved version of ranked? It's this combine concept is so much closer to ranked than it is to a team.
It is.
Yeah, it is like
closer,
ranked.
but you also are presumably playing with people of a higher caliber, dependably,
and people that also want to get into
boosted.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't see a possible way in which the combine could be something of use for like of like very high importance, right? I think you already know who you want to look at, and you can kind of just look at their tournament performance.
I think you make it a showcase.
Yeah.
You make it a big shiny showcase, and you don't make it worth anything, and you just have people come to a big stadium for a day and watch people play these games, and you get to integrate the fans into something. You get to integrate
they're all
the
from
talent
Europe
scouts
and
into
North
something.
America, apart from Miro, who's the only Korean sat there.
The one thing is
because they're not rolling out Owl for Korea until season 4, and he's just sat there as the lone guy playing Winston, doesn't speak English very well.
Gee, I wish I was in Apex right now.
Well, no, to be fair, this is nice for ladder heroes that aren't actually on teams right now, because they'll actually get a chance to showcase that, you know, they can compete.
Getting on teams is still the same issue, and I think we discussed a little bit of this, or someone was talking about this a little bit, is that the reason that there's 0 women competing in Overwatch, and it's that most of the teams that exist are people that know each other. They met each other in beta, they met each other from other video games. Like, they're not just picking up random people as much as they were in, like, the early beta time. And I think that is a lot of the reason why you've seen no women, is that when it becomes a boys club like that, it is impossible to get through. And so if a woman has a very high level of skill, but she's a complete stranger, she has no experience, what does she have to offer over every other dude that is skilled and has no experience actually playing on a team? Like, that makes it even more difficult.
Like, that doesn't make any difference based on your gender, though. That would mean that just anybody who was trying to get in would,
exactly.
Like,
that's what I'm saying. It's because they didn't have the network that already existed for all these people that were able to network their way in and have that opportunity. I'm not saying that they're bad. The guys that are in the scene now are good players, and they deserve to be there. I'm just saying, like, that ladder issue, I think, is where we will start to see women come in, is through the ranks that way. I don't think we're going to see them, you know, circle jerking their way into Overwatch.
Well, for sure. I don't think we're going to see them circle jerking their way in. I think it'll be circle jilling, if anything, but that's, that's a different case. But
no one's going to bring a boosted Mercy onto a team. That's not going to happen. I'm talking about legitimate, hardcore fraggers that deserve to be in the league.
Okay, but if these people were there, then there'd be a... Like, if there were enough of them to have the numbers to be able to make the switch, if you, like, opened it up, then you would be able to, like, already point out really capable women players in, like, Grandmaster or whatever currently. And that as far as I know, there's, like, the numbers skew massively in favor of the males in that situation.
I'm just saying,
so
like,
even if you open it up, like...
Even if you open it up, but I feel like it's worth opening it up, and I feel like that's the sort of thing that Blizzard would be interested in. I don't think that they're happy that there aren't any women at all. I don't think they're pleased with that. I don't think that that's up to the standard of what they generally show in their other games. Their other games have massive female following, and Overwatch has a massive female following. It's just most of them are cosplayers. Most of them play Mercy. So what about the other girls? What about the girls
I would actually really enjoy...
Like, want to play competitively?
I would really like to see what... Because this, of course, this talk is in the background of, like, the TSM Gale drama and all of this stuff, and people have been talking about this more, which is why I assume we're discussing it now as well, like, why it's on the forefront of our minds. But I would really like to see how, like, different sizes of the Overwatch player base break down in terms of gender, because I have a feeling that the overall player base doesn't skew anywhere near as overall male as, like, the top ends, because people say that it's like a numbers game, and they use that argument almost exclusively, like, when it's like the first thing that they bring up. And definitely, I mean, I say definitely, I don't have any stats, but it seems to me, like, anecdotally and just from who tends to interact with Overwatch content, that there do seem to be, and who interacts with esports and gaming in general as well, that there do seem to be more males involved. But I think in, like, the general population of Overwatch players, it does seem to be a game that has appealed more to women in general as well.
One thing that was really, I guess this is kind of weird, but one thing that was really curious to me is that when I post videos when my videos get posted to the competitive Overwatch subreddit, it's generally like 98% of the viewer base is male. But I have had videos that got posted to the standard Overwatch subreddit that skewed more towards like 60% of the viewership being male.
Really? That big?
Yeah.
That is that is genuinely a huge
general. And I think that's one of the things that we've discussed a lot in esports, is that, like, how does the difference between esports and casual fans happen? Because there's so many more women that are casual gamers than care about esports, which to me, it blows my mind, because I'm not a very competitive person, but esports are the best thing they're amazing. They're my favorite thing in the world. If you ask any of my friends, I've got like T-shirts and posters and things that just have esports on them, because like it's so awesome that this thing exists and that it brings people together in the way that it does, and it just surprises me that so few women are interested in it or follow it, especially in a game like Overwatch, like I said, like with Blizzard, who are known to be very inclusive to women, and it just is really weird to me.
I think there's just a lot.
Yeah, go on.
Well, I just think there are too many factors to pin it down on any one specific thing, right? I think it's a pretty convoluted issue. It comes from like being raised in a culture where gaming isn't necessarily seen as like a female activity, and then also, I mean, it's just a field in psychology and neuro that's not studied well enough at this point in time. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of factors, and it's hard to kind of pin it down. And I don't know if we will in any short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, there's like multiple areas as well, and if you're looking to try and tackle that, if you're trying to actively bring in more females and stuff, which there is an argument as well, just to say, like, if you make it as open as possible, you don't have to deliberately try and make it 50-50 in terms of male and female. But if that's your aim, to try and make it more diverse in terms of the genders that are taking part, you gotta like recognize the areas that you can and can't have an influence on as well. It would be unreasonable for Blizzard to have an influence on the wider society factors that are coming into play there, right? And that it would be unreasonable for Blizzard to have any influence on any genetic component of the neurology or psychology that's coming into, unless they're gonna sit people down, pin them down.
Blizzard's gonna start splicing their Warcraft DNA into little.
They can have a combine that allows the girls who have climbed the ladder to participate in a competitive environment and be seen for the first time.
Yeah, but there is no guarantee as well that even if they went as far as they possibly could with factors that were under their influence, it would have any meaningful.
No, but from what I know of
like that doesn't mean that
like they're gonna try. I feel like they're gonna try.
Yeah,
which is why I still, even with my frustrations that I've expressed several times, that's why I still have faith in a lot of this stuff, is because it still feels like Overwatch is the game that's going to finally bring some kind of balance eventually. I feel that way, because
balance to the force.
TF2 is still rough. Like, there are not a lot of girl fraggers, and it's a rough place, and there's still, female medic jokes and stuff like that, and it does kind of suck.
Female mercy.
It carried over into Overwatch, and I knew that was going to happen eventually. It was just that, I think Season 3 is just when it exploded. Like, everyone started playing Mercy. Everyone started Mercy boosting, and it just...
It's gotten so bad. There's...
Those aren't females, though, are they? Those are normally just males that play only female characters. They normally are, but
because of, what is it, the video of the two Mercy mains arguing, the two girls arguing, because of things like that people have recorded and shown, it makes it more prevalent, and that has become, like, the joke now, and it's just like TF2, and you just can't escape the, like, female support thing, and it's just never going to go away. And it doesn't bother me as much, because I know there's a lot of girls that enjoy playing support, and so I know how challenging support, I can't play support. It's too hard. So I understand a lot of work goes into it, and it's not that it's easier necessarily. But
that's the easy road to high divs? Is that what you just said, Sami? You said Mercy's the easiest class in the game? The easiest hero?
What a sexist.
Mercy, I don't know, because I don't play Mercy, so I actually don't know how easy it is. But based off of everything that I'm hearing culturally, it's the easiest class in the game to play. And,
you hide.
Yeah. So... That's the thing that I think it would be cool to see that counteracted. And obviously I'm not capable of doing that because I'm bad at video games. But I would really support and be excited to see some women show up to the Combine. So I guess that's part of the reason that I'm, like, emotionally invested in the Combine, is that little part of me that just really wants to see some chick fraggers come through and just blow people's minds. I'd really love to see that happen.
Feminine fraggers, new all-female team.
No, no all-female teams. No.
Yeah, are there any women playing in the Chinese circuit that are actually on DPS or flex or tank roles, though?
I think it's a Mercy main on one of the teams.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, one of them is notorious for having this Pyro Mercy combo.
Her name is like
1170 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And they've all got numbers. How are you supposed to remember, like, a code of numbers unless they translate in your language to, like, a phrase?
What I was told is that it does translate in some language.
Yeah, it doesn't translate to a phrase in English, though, does it? It translates to somebody's PIN code or something. I can't remember that shit.
Could be a euphemism for all we know.
I don't even know. How would that work? Yeah, in Chinese, yeah. Ones into your zeros. That's what Sami's saying. Yeah, I'm not sure whether any of the others are, but I think they've got like 3 or 4.
Guri is also that other person that from Korea.
I mean,
That was a
people
long time
raced her
ago.
as well, but that team looked like it was going to be promising and then fell off a fucking Korean cliff and then splattered at the bottom and never recovered.
And it brought us Zephyr.
So now that I've fixed the combine, is there anything else you guys want to talk about this week?
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
You're welcome, Blizzard.
Okay.
I fixed it.
All right. Yeah, if Nate's watching, Sammy's fixed the combine. There you go.
You can't tell me you wouldn't want to go to that.
Nice.
It would be so sick.
I genuinely don't think I would want to go to that, Sammy. I don't know. It's
partially because it's
I
potentially.
don't want
Los
you at my
Angeles
birthday party
or
anyway.
Anaheim.
yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, I still don't understand how the combine's going to fit to everything, but the rest of it, I'm reasonably optimistic about. You know, like the way that they're going to fit the Owl and the rest of their teams into this as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I
want more.
Feel
Overwatch
pretty good.
League. I want more Overwatch League. I want to know. I want to be told something, and that's why I'm frustrated every time there's an announcement that isn't Overwatch League.
I think in my mind, this Overwatch Contenders is tied so closely to Blizzard's overall plan that includes the Overwatch League, that they had their Overwatch League as like the flagship, but it was only like the head of their wider esports plans. That I feel like this is actually the beginning, and as it's the beginning, it is the end of the darkest times. Like Admirable was trying to get us to write a piece on Overwatch.gg, like an editorial about the kind of the rumors that we had heard and stuff. Like, yeah, he said the dawn is the dark. It's always darkest before the dawn. I was like, if I was gonna write that piece though, I'd never use that title because it's literally factually incorrect, and it makes me so annoyed every time people. Yeah, it's always darkest before the dawn though, isn't it? It's bloody not. Have you ever got up before the dawn? It starts to get light, and then it's the dawn. That's the point.
But
like, it's darkest halfway between the dawn and the dusk.
You know what preceded the Renaissance? The Dark Ages.
I mean, they were only the Dark Ages for a small portion of Europe as well, weren't they?
There's
everybody
also probably...
was dead.
Who was dead?
Everyone in Europe.
Not everyone was dead.
There was rat plague. It was bad.
Oh, right, I see. But it's the Dark Ages culturally. It doesn't mean anything to do with, like...
But that's
I mean, it was the
like,
Black Plague as well.
Life expectancy was so low because of the plague.
Nothing
so,
to
like...
do with...
But that's why they couldn't afford to be creative. Everybody was poor and dead.
I imagine it wasn't just
Sammy
dark...
takes history lessons coming
right. I am on fire today.
Yeah. So I think for me, I feel like we've gone through the hardest times already. We lost a couple of organizations along the way. Bye-bye, guys. Salute. But I think that they might well be back. Like, you could pick up, for someone like Splice, I mean, maybe not Splice. They tend to have like a different way of looking at things. But for one of these other teams that purely dropped their team because there weren't enough things coming up or whatever, like maybe a Dignitas, we don't really know what was going on behind the scenes there. Like, they could pick up like an ex-Cyclones or something and still have a good team that was going into Overwatch Contenders, and they start to have some stake in it. You know, these kind of things, if the viewership's good, you'll start seeing people return and get invested. This is like the start of the beginning. Things have been plateauing before Blizzard's or Overwatch's esports actually kicks off, I think, and maybe they went for a slight dip as people were like, what the fuck, is it even going to happen? What? And then this is going to start building us back up, I think.
I'm excited. Well, I guess the main thing to look forward to now then is the World Cup. We get to see some live action video games.
Maybe we'll get another member of the Combine from it.
Holla holla. It's going to be whoever gets voted the MVP of the winning team. So, don't know. Soon? I mean, you're going to have a guy in the Combine who can only play Tracer?
You just get a computer and you push a button. It just matches everybody. It's so simple.
Interesting to note that Sideshow thinks France will beat Korea.
No, I was just... I didn't want Korea to win again, you know, in my mind, because, you know, then Miro gets it twice. Like, Miro's going to the Combine again, guys!
6 years down the line, all of Lunatic High is going to be in the Combine.
No, all of Lunatic High is just Miro. There's along with this thing to change like the genetic differences of all of the people that they've got playing. They've also developed a cloning machine, so you can. Robert Kraft comes in and it's like, right, boys, I've looked at it, and the best player in the world is Ryu Hong, but he's the best on flex support, and he's also the best on tank, and he's also a really sick DPS player. And then I want 3 Miros to round out the rest of my roster, and that's your team.
You've really put on the tinfoil hat. That's all I'll say to that.
All right, well, I think that's going to be it for us this week. Thank you guys, as always, for your inspiring banter and bullying. We will see everyone next week for another episode of 12 O'Clock News.